6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Good afternoon, everybody. I would like to call to order the June meeting of the Cape Cod Gateway Airport Commission. It is the 20th of June, and the time is 1600. May I have a roll call, please?
Certainly. Chairman Griffin?
Here.
Vice Chairman Flores?
I'm here.
Clerk Weil?
Here.
Commissioner Beerworth?
Here.
Commissioner Bailey?
Here.
Commissioner DeGeorge?
Here.
Commissioner Piat?
Here.
And Yarmouth Rep. Christine Greeley?
Here.
We have a full quorum this evening.
Thank you very much. Would everybody stand and join me in the pledge of allegiance, please? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Before we continue, I would like to welcome to the table Chris Greeley, the newly appointed, I guess the selectmen appoint town, a representative as a liaison between the Yarmouth Selectmen, Select Board, and the citizens of our neighbors in Yarmouth, and to represent and act as a liaison between them and the commission. And we welcome you to the table.
Thank you.
Okay, we have minutes. Previous meeting, May 16th, they were sent out, everybody get a chance to review them. Any additions, deletions, modifications, whatever? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to accept them as presented.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of the May 16th, 2023 as written.
Second.
All in favor signify aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. Report from the subcommittees. Commissioner Weil, Finance. Oh, I'm sorry. Public comment, everybody, you're out there on TV, well, if anybody's TV, probably not, but everybody here, you're welcome to address the commission with anything you wish to say. Tell us who you are in 2 or 3 minutes, and you're welcome to hear from you.
Do you want to hear from me now? I'm on your agenda, but
I will call you up as soon as we.
great.
Thank
For me,
Okay, hearing none, we'll close that. No commissioner's response is necessary. And we'll jump to the finance subcommittees. Commissioner Weil.
Hello, everybody. The Finance Subcommittee of the Cape Cod Gateway Airport met on June 6th. In the morning of June 6th, the meeting was called to order at 8:32 a.m. Commissioners Weil, Flores, and Bailey were all present by Zoom. The meeting was held by Zoom. We had a vote on the minutes of the May 2nd, 2023 Finance Subcommittee. It was unanimous. They were unanimously accepted. There was no old business. For new business, we discussed FIN 0623-1, the rules review and approve the license amendment signed between Cape Cod Gateway Airport and HMI Parking Services Limited. I won't go into the details since that will be covered in our meeting today, but we took the action we took was to move the item for consideration at today's meeting. We had several updates. The most significant was a review of the financials, and that also included a discussion of an analysis that was presented for the first time about the jet fuel program, which was very, very interesting and very well done. I'm not sure if it's going to be brought up at this meeting. I think commissioners that saw it were quite impressed. The other items will probably be discussed at this meeting, and the meeting is adjourned at 9:33 a.m.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Any questions, comments regarding the Finance Subcommittee? Hearing none, we'll move to the Infrastructure and Marketing Subcommittee. Commissioner DeGeorge.
Yes, the Infrastructure and Marketing Subcommittee met on June 6th at 10:32 in the morning via Zoom. Commissioners Beerworth, DeGeorge, and Gay were present. We discuss some unfinished business, IN 1021-2, review and discuss the sign plan modifications. On-call engineering, Airport Solutions Group is developing a bid specification for the sign replacement as required by the town of Barnstable Procurement Office, and will go out to bid. Management has also reached out to the Highway Department Division District 5 office to start the process of replacing the signs along Route 6. For new business, IN 0623-2, review and discuss approval for on-call communication management community outreach service to Pierce Cody, a Reagan communications company. That will be discussed today at the full commission meeting. The next one was IN 0423-1, monthly update airport business plan. And rather than go through what we discussed, Katie will give us a full update as far as the airport business plan. Other things that were discussed, Commissioner Griffin recognized the 79th anniversary of D-Day as two-judge school overhead over the field. And an update on the Nantucket Airport staffing issue was reviewed by Manager Service, stated that the Cape Cod Gateway Airport is prepared and has issued a standard operating procedure in preparation for an influx of additional aircraft parking. Having no other business, we adjourn the meeting at 11:35.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any questions or comments regarding the Infrastructure and Marketing Subcommittee? Okay, old business, we see we have none. New business. We have an agenda item here. I will read it in. This is COM 0623-1. And this is approval to enter into lease negotiations by and between Cape Cod Gateway Airport and Aloft Aviation Management LLC or Signs for the airport-owned property located on Mary Dunn Way as approved by the Town of Barnstable Procurement Office. Sponsor is management. It may be acted upon today. May I have a second, please?
Second.
Discussion.
Okay,
You got it.
thank you very much, Katie Service Airport Manager. So at this point in time, with two public bid attempts that we have had made by the procurement office, with little to nothing to show for our efforts with those two public bids, airport management is requesting that we move forward with the direct negotiations with an interested tenant. Obviously, our interested tenant is here today, Eric Drew with Aloft Aviation. I'm going to ask Eric to come up in a couple of minutes and talk about it. But I want to give you the background as to why we're asking for this request and additional information that we received from our attorneys, as well as information that we received from the procurement office. So during the recent public procurement process, we had a process in the end of 2022 that came back with one bid, and then the awardee rescinded their bid and their proposal back in December of 2022. And then for this most recent procurement process in 2023, we did not receive a proposal. Obviously, Eric Drew and Aloft Aviation, they're in the process of looking at development of property at the airport, which is the track that Mr. Drew was going to stay on, until he heard that there were no bids for this past procurement process. So with no bids for the past procurement process, Mr. Drew asked that we resurrect our discussions with the airport and negotiate a lease directly with the interested tenant. So Aloft Aviation's intentions are to have aircraft maintenance operation, avionics and instrument maintenance operation, aircraft storage, aircraft rental and flight instruction, aircraft charter, as well as commercial aeronautical activities such as sightseeing flights. That was provided to us in a previous proposal at another point in time back in March of 2023 when we were requesting information from viable tenants. So I reached out to the procurement office and I reached out to our attorneys to get their read on us being able to move forward with direct negotiations. So our attorney, and I actually provided that information for you in an email last week, our attorney basically said that there is an exemption. There is an exemption under Mass General Law 30B, and that that allows us to enter into direct negotiations with aviation land uses as long as the property is going to be used for aviation purposes. And of course, that term in that lease would also be a 20-year term, no more unless it's identified that town council has approved that. So I reached out to our procurement office next. Our procurement officer indicated that since we've had two stabs at the apple, if you will, for procurement process to enter into a lease with entities that proposed on the process, we've given ample time and opportunity for anybody that was interested in the property to come back and bid on the property. Obviously, fast forward to bids, we haven't received anything. Plus, the exemption that currently exists for the procurement of aviation-related property. Amber was able to provide me feedback on her view, basically in regards to ours going through a direct negotiation with an interested tenant. So she agrees with the exemption, she agrees with our attorney that we've made two very good attempts at the competitive process, nothing came of that, and now we can just go ahead and proceed with direct communications. Airport management is seeking that these lease negotiations begin with the tenant. We will use the form of lease that was provided in the RFP. It's something that Mr. Drew has seen before. It will include the milestones that we identified in the lease, which are to have the hangar roof replaced within 6 months period of time after lease signature. And again, Mr. Drew also provides in his proposal a lot of the elements of our business plan that we're seeking for general aviation growth at this area. So with that being said, I'd like to ask Eric to come up.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Personal items under your control at all times. Uncontrolled items will be turned over to the Barnstable police and will require identification for return. Drivers must remain in their vehicles at the terminal drop-off area. Unattended vehicles may be ticketed for them. The TSA reminds travelers to remain alert when there is an accident and immediately report any suspicious activity, person, or items to local law enforcement. Thank you for choosing Cape Cod Gateway Airport for your transportation needs and have a safe flight.
I never realized how long that message was.
Waiting for it to end. Yeah. But it's a combination of that and then the banging noise behind it. I just,
Sorry about
and
that.
I don't want to miss a word.
So with this being said, with the fact that we have some approvals from our attorney to go ahead with direct negotiations with the tenant, we have approval and concurrence with those same ideas from the procurement office. The request from the airport management is that we proceed in this fashion. However, before I get comments from the commission, I would just like Eric to come up, say a few words about his intentions for that facility. The request for tonight is that you approve that we move forward with the course of action of negotiating a lease directly with this tenant. So Eric, you want to say a few words?
Sure.
Good afternoon again. I know many of you, but for those of you who I have not met personally, I'm Eric Turkey. Katie always drops the E off the end, but I answer to anything. I'll respond to everything. So third time's the charm. I've been trying to get into the Air Cape Cod building on a more permanent basis for a long time. I've conducted a lot of business activities there in the past, flight school and rental and other things over the years. It just never worked out that we could come up with a permanent solution being there. I didn't want to get involved in the museum was going to be in there because their idea was to use a hangar, and that's of course what I wanted, so it made sense to sort of approach it at that time. And then the last go around, I had already kind of committed to getting going with another project on the field, as you're aware. But in light of the fact that it's now sitting empty, maybe third time's the charm. So, although no one else wants it, so I'm not so sure why I'm here. Glad for punishment, I guess. But I'm happy to go on at length for whatever you folks are interested in hearing. The long and the short of it is my company, Aloft Aviation, does a variety of things. We do aircraft management, we do maintenance, we do flight school operations, aircraft rental, sort of all of the general aviation activities that tick the boxes, I think, that meet your aims and goals. it seems that you've stated your intentions to improve general aviation at the Cape Cod Gateway Airport. We bring those items to the table. The location of Air Cape Cod is really the strength of that building. I mean, let's face it, there's not much of the building left. It has been in a pretty steady decline for the last 10 years. But it is better than where I was considering building, which is down behind the Hexagon hangar, in terms of access. Ramp access, in terms of a more public presence, it's a little bit more identifiable space. In fact, if you Google flight school Cape Cod, it comes up that Aloft Aviation is at Air Cape Cod still, so based on a couple of years ago. It also says Pilgrim Aviation is there as well. So people do identify that as the spot where there's probably some aviation training activity going on. I think it makes sense to use that space. I'm happy to renovate the building. It will be less costly in the end rather than building what I'm going to build. The downside for me is I don't own this building. I'm going to be spending my money on the airport's structure, but at the end of the day, after weighing all the possibilities, I think this is the best option for us. Happy to answer any questions you might have, or see if I can fill in any blanks. You've seen proposals for me in the past, so you know what I'm intending to do. So,
Thank you very much for being here and coming.
you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Just as a quick comment, as you know, the museum was what sort of was about to settle in there. And I think we love the museum and we're happy that it's got settled. But the other interesting thing about the museum is the FAA did not consider an aviation historical museum an aviation activity.
Correct.
And this is definitely an aviation activity.
That's what we do all day, every day, is fly airplanes. So, and I think there's a need for flight training here at Hyannis. There's a need for a variety of interesting aviation opportunities, and that building lends itself to that. You just need a concerted effort and a plan. We have one. So we're ready to get started.
Commissioners? Is that I'm raising my hand?
Oh, we're all good, no, yeah, I just say, Mr. Chairman, that, I'm pleased how this resolved itself, this was done the right way. It's above board, and it's above question, and we're fortunate that we have an interest, such as Aloft, to be willing to move into that space and have renovation.
And I respect your process. I understand why you took the course you did. It's just, unfortunately, it didn't work particularly well with our timeline because we don't want to miss our opportunity here. But if we can get moving quickly, we can get back up to it.
Any other questions, Commissioner?
Okay, no other questions for Eric?
John?
Thank you for considering.
Oh,
Thank you, Eric. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, Katie, relative to the lease agreement that we will be creating, I know there are specific metrics,
Yes,
milestones built in.
yes.
What happens if those milestones and metrics are not met? What are the repercussions?
So they're part of the overall lease. So within the lease, the RFP lease document identified a form of lease that identified those milestones that have to be met within a certain time. So it could be termination of lease would result if those timelines are not met. I know in speaking to Eric, the first order of magnitude that he has to work on really has to be the lease. We have in our lease that's going to be done within the first 6 months, and I think that's what we talked about at one of our last commission meetings. So if it's not met, then it would be a termination of the lease, the form of termination.
I just wanted to be sure that whatever the metrics are, they're reasonable, because I appreciate the fact that Eric has stepped up to go with the building. At the same time, we need to be sure that they are compliant.
Yes, exactly.
Any other questions or comments? I can envision a building that looks pretty decent. Anything would compared to what it is. But thank you. Any other comments or questions that were raised? Last chance. All in favor, kindly signify aye.
Aye.
Opposition, opposed? Hearing none? It's unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll be in touch with your lease.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great afternoon.
Thanks for
everyone.
being
Thank you.
here.
And just for the record, we can record that there was a motion made for
Well,
this.
there was. Okay, most certainly was. I read it. Okay, Finance Subcommittee, Commissioner Weil, would you take the next one, please? 63-7.
This is a motion to approve license amendment number 1 by and between Cape Cod Gateway Airport and HMI Parking Services LLC effective July 1, 2023 for an additional 1,688 feet of land for the purposes of vehicle parking. This will increase the monthly payment to $3,241.57 through September 30th, 2025. The sponsor is the Finance Subcommittee, and it may be acted upon at this meeting.
Thank you. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Discussion?
Sure. So management completed a draft license amendment for our land lease with HMI Parking Services. HMI Parking Services leases land from us in a grass lot that is used typically for overflow vehicle parking. They currently have a 3-year license agreement with us for vehicle parking. The amendment includes an expansion of the land lease for airport vehicle parking for HMI. The current license agreement expires September 30th of 2025. The amendment will be tied to the existing terms of the current license agreement and will terminate at the same time. The additional land lease is as follows. An additional 1,688 square feet was requested at $1.34 per square foot at the current rate that it's paying now. In the October 2023 license agreement. This brings us to an additional $2,261 per year or $188 per month. So this is the amendment. The total lease rate with the above addition for the airport is $38,898 per year for the license agreement, and that goes up every year by CPI or 3%. And monthly, we receive $3,241.57 from this agreement. For us, having vehicle parking, as you know, is another way for the airport to bring in non-aviation related revenue to the budget. It works out well for HMI, and we're happy to help them with the expansion. I sent you the agreement for review last week, and it also had
Attention gentlemen passengers traveling on flight 1963 with service to JFK. Just so you guys are aware, there is no water in the restrooms on board, so if you need to use the restroom or wash your hands or anything, please use the restroom right now at the gate. Thank you.
I think we might be choosing another venue for our next meeting. The license premise, the map was updated by our team at Horsley Witten Group, and the request is that the commission approve this amendment number 1 for HMI. Any questions or comments?
So on page 2, the 29,029 square feet, that's page 3.
Sorry about that.
There you go, right there. That reflects the addition of the 1688.
Yes, that's the total amount. So what we changed there for the license, the amended language is for now the encompassing 29,029 square feet, all of the property that they lease from us.
Okay, and then the next paragraph after that, unless there are additional conditions, I'd recommend we strike that paragraph because it's blank after that as follows.
It goes on to the next page.
Yeah, but it's a separate paragraph that addresses that, right?
I will take a look at it with our
Okay.
attorney, they crafted this.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner Flores?
Yeah, just a question regarding these leases. As we have the agreements with the car rental agencies, if they reach a certain gross amount, we get a percentage. Is there any type of, do we have any kind of similar agreement in the parking leases?
Not in this particular lease. Right now, their lease goes to 2025. We don't have that agreement. We do want to have that agreement moving forward. It's something we'll probably look at in the future for the 11 acres that we have on the East Ramp. and it would be something that we look at here. I think that's in the airport's benefit.
The reason I bring it up, I think we're leaving money on the table.
Without a MAG, without a minimum annual guarantee, I agree, which is why we wanna change our other leases.
And the other question, just a comment or an observation, I think what we should also do is take a look at what these entities are charging the respective clients, if you will. And take a look at if in fact what we are charging per square foot is the right number.
Like what's the markup?
Yeah, exactly.
We'll take a look at that.
Any further questions or comments, discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of continuing signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none,
Thank you.
carries. Next one is 02623-3, Commissioner DeGeorge, would you read that in, please?
Yeah, motion to approve the award and contract for on-call communications management and community outreach services to Pierce Cody, a Reagan communications company, sponsored by the Infrastructure Committee and may be acted upon.
Is there a second, please?
Second.
Discussion.
Sure. The evaluation committee for this particular on-call communications management community outreach services bid was for a 3-year on-call. The evaluation committee was made up of myself, Matt Elia, the assistant airport manager, and Wendy Beerworth, commissioner. The firm demonstrated their capabilities to meet various items that we put in the RFP. I won't list them all, I listed them in my email last week, but I will go through.
If you're on Jumping Flight 1963 to JFK, we want to thank you again for choosing us. We will begin boarding, so please take a look at your boarding pass to see what boarding group you're in and wait until your group is called. Please help us keep the boarding area clear so we can get you on your way as quickly as possible. Once your boarding group is called, make sure you have your boarding pass out with the barcode visible.
Okay.
If you're using a mobile boarding pass, please turn the screen brightness all the way up.
It's good that we have a flight.
I was gonna say, this is the busiest I've seen this airport since I started coming to these meetings, so kind of a good thing.
And did I hear toilets flushing in the terminal before I board?
We will begin boarding flight 1963 to JFK, gate
We'll
3
see
by
if
offering
anybody-
pre-boarding to customers with disabilities. All other customers are asked to stay clear of the boarding area so others can get through.
You have to turn it on the side.
Did you turn it on over here? Hello? Hello? Can you hear me?
Blue Flight 1963 to JFK, now allow our Mosaic members, mid-customers, and American Advantage Elite members to board. Again, if you have Mid-Mosaic or AA Elite on your boarding pass, you are welcome to board. If you do not have Mid-Mosaic or AA Elite on your boarding pass, please keep clear of the boarding area so others can get through.
Okay, I will try again. The communications management piece involves all of our social media, our outreach to our community. It includes development of a strategic plan
Blue
for
Flight
our
1963
messaging.
to JFK, now invites Group A as an airplane to board. Again, if you have Group A on your boarding pass, you are welcome to board. If you do not have Group A on your boarding pass, please keep clear of the boarding area so others can get through.
Sorry about that. Implementation of tactics for outreach in multiple platforms, whether that's through social media, through our website. They would be in control of
Blue
that
Flight
content on our
1963 to JFK, now invites active military personnel and customers with children in car seats or strollers to board. Again, if you're active military or traveling with children in car seats or strollers, you may now board.
Reporting on measures of strategy success, so we wanted to
Blue
know
Flight
how well
1963 to JFK, now invites Group B as in blue to board in gate 3. Again, if you're Groups A or B on your boarding pass, you are welcome to board.
I know. Should I be getting that? Reporting measures on strategy success, we want to know how well we're doing on various platforms, whether it's our social media platforms, our website, are we getting that messaging out, is it getting out to the right people? Working with us closely on creating material that we can send out, whether it's through a press release or events that are coming up for the airport, we would have them work on that. Advertisement within the airport facility, within the terminal building, that would be part of their scope of work. Development and dissemination of blog posts and articles on our behalf. Crisis management, God forbid if there was an incident or accident that occurred here at the airport, they would be our go-to team to
JetBlue
help
Flight
us with crisis
1963 to
management.
JFK, now there's Group C as in captain aboard. Again, for Groups A, B, or C on your boarding pass, you are now welcome aboard.
Monitoring and reporting the effectiveness of our press releases, how far did those press releases reach our community as we intended, and other sources of communications management for the airport. During the interview, we asked them several questions, and I'll have Wendy speak up in a couple of minutes, but I feel that they really responded to what we were looking for. We asked them to provide a breakdown of their staff who would be tasked to the airport's business and who would be committed to work on the airport's business and our media outreach. We asked if they had any existing clients that would cause or potential conflict with the airport. We asked them to outline a basic scope of work as they're going to proceed forward for us. We asked them to expand upon the firm's scope of work and how they consider efficient operations to look like for the airport, so that we would have a monthly schedule that is a typical schedule with them of what would be disseminated through various means, but obviously as things arise, they would have to interject with different responses.
JetBlue Flight 1963 to JFK, now there's Group D as a destination aboard. Again, for Groups A, B, C, or D on your boarding pass, you may now board.
They are also available to assist us in redevelopment of our airport business plan and the update of our airport business plan. Other reasons why we chose this firm and awarded to them is the firm obviously has the staffing. They have the capability to reach a number of entities both here on Cape Cod as well as beyond Cape Cod. Their connections to Regan Communications is in Boston, so they have media that they can reach out to beyond our borders, beyond Cape Cod, which is a win for us. So they can tap into that creativity from those from their firms in Boston as well. The firm obviously has experience. We've worked with them in the past before. We had them under contract when I first got here at the airport. They did not win the second bid that went out. That was with the Quotient Group, but they won this bid going forward today. The firm definitely has a number of staff members that we are familiar with. Some of their staff members used to work for the Cape Cod Times. Some of their staff members we've personally worked with, such as Brad Schiff, who is the project lead. We've worked with him in the past. He helped us create our business plan. So there's a known entity there. When we did reach out to references to find out how they worked with the firm, whether or not they were responsive to their needs, overwhelmingly we got really good responses back from our references. So with that, I'd like to see if Wendy, do you have any comments or anything to add to that?
Yeah, just their presentation could not have been more
JetBlue Flight 1963 to JFK, now invites Group E as an entrance aboard at Gate 3. Again, if you have Group A, B, C, D, or E on your boarding pass, you're welcome to board.
It's good, we only have 19 minutes left.
They all arrived early and left seats at different intervals so that we would have to sit among them rather than us sitting opposite them. So it brought us in to make us part of the team immediately. It was just all this little stuff that they did.
JetBlue Flight 1963 to JFK, now invites Group F as in fly to board at Gate 3. Again, if you have Group A, B, C, D, E, or F on your boarding pass, you're welcome to board.
This is a 100-passenger plane.
They had already approached the Steamship Authority to get permission to work with us. They did not see any conflict of interest. One of the things I liked about them both most is that they have both regional and national capabilities, and they have the
And now all
staff
confirmed customers are welcome to board at this time.
capabilities to increase responsibilities if we need them to take on new tasks. Very impressive. And it's Pierce Cote, right?
Pierce Cote.
They're located right here in Osterville.
They are in Osterville, correct, with their parent company, Regan Communications in Boston.
For whatever it's worth, 20 years ago, they did work for my company. They were recommended to me by the prominent, probably the most prominent software PR company in the world, actually. And they perform exemplary work for me. I don't think any of the people that I work with are part of that organization anymore, but they've had a track record for a number of years. That's the purpose of my making a comment.
Vice Chair. John?
Yeah, I would also second what Rob just stated. I did some work with the Lincoln Company back in the 80s and 90s. They're always a class act. You know, Cote Pierce is a subsidiary of
It is.
of Lincoln. And the question I would have, I know two of the account managers at Cote Pierce, they're both local people, they know the kid very well. Will they both be assigned to us, or how does that work?
So what they would do, they have an assigned project manager, Beth, I can't think of Beth's last name right now, but we have an assigned project manager. We can always reach out to Brad, who is in charge of the folks that will be dedicated to the airport. Jeff Splain, who comes from the Cape Cod, formerly from the Cape Cod Times, he was a journalist. He is on our team. Then they have a number of digital content managers that have been dedicated to our team. Our main scope of work in our task implementation will go to Beth and to Brad, and they will disseminate the information that they need to their team to make sure we get our projects done.
I noticed also that Leslie Sandberg is also one of the account managers. She's a very talented professional. Knows the political landscape of Cape Cod and Massachusetts extremely well. So I think that would be a great benefit to us.
Yeah, I think so too, and I think that it's helpful that they're so entrenched on Cape Cod, and that was the main thing. We had worked with them previously, and then we put out another project to bid for communications management, and it went to a non-local team, and we felt that. We felt that when, we tried to push things forward, there was just a disconnect with what Cape Cod was trying to do and what we were trying to do on Cape Cod. So bringing it back locally, I think is going to be beneficial to us.
I was going to say the same thing.
Well, that sounds great. I'd like to thank all of you that were on the evaluation committee. Commissioner Beerworth, thank you so much for stepping up over there with management. Any other questions or comments? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor signify aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Here we go. An indication that we're wrapping up the fiscal year and looking forward to the next one. 0623-4, this is annual election of the airport commissioner officers and eventual appointment to subcommittees. We got a pretty good team. I kind of think so. But anybody want to see it changed, or if anybody wants to, Commissioner Beerworth?
I would like to simply renominate the current slate of John Griffin, John Flores, and Ron Wild.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
Okay, now I gotta ask the big question. Vice Chairman Flores, do you want to continue this?
Yes.
Clerk Whale, do you want to continue?
I was concerned with his reluctance. Yes, sir. I'd be happy to.
Vice Chair Groff, you want to do that? Yeah, sure. One more time. This is the end of this fiscal year, and this is looking forward to the next. We've got a slate nominated. We have a second. The three individuals nominated have indicated a willingness to continue. So I'll call a question. All in favor of electing that slate of officers, please signify aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No hear it. Congratulations and thank you. Here we go. Unless I find or somebody finds a compelling reason to scramble or change the subcommittees, that doesn't have to be done today, I don't think. But as of right now, I see no reason to change it. I think everybody's working very, very well. Comments?
Chairman?
Second.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
While we're on the topic, can we just wrap that up? Can we just agree to keep the subcommittees the same?
We could, although it's my prerogative to assign them.
Item.
So I hereby assign them to stay put.
There you go.
Okay, thank you all. Let's see, here we go. Gotta be something like up updates.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. Report of special committees, and we have present with us Yarmouth representative at the table.
Yes, indeed. Actually returning after my initial stint decades ago as one of the first Yarmouth representatives to the airport convention, so it's been a lot of years. I am making it an active point to meet with selectmen and town administrator to see if there are issues of concern to them and bring them forward to you for each meeting. And I also have always been reporting back, even as a just a visitor observer to them in terms of things that have gone on here. The one question that has come up recently from them has had to do with the whole issue of the flow of the PFAS and the monitoring. And so there's some concern on their part about where the end of those plumes are, in particular since we have things going down into the Mill Pond Marsh and it's a critical habitat. And they're not sure if it shows some flow below into there, but there's no real monitors. And so the question has been raised about that. And I know it's not something you've ever necessarily answered today, but it has been raised by them. So I will point that out. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris, and again, welcome.
Thank you.
Oh,
I can just respond to
Okay.
that.
yeah, go right ahead.
Chris, thank you for that information. We've provided 2 meetings that talked about PFAS and how the airport was monitoring PFAS, just so that the concerned citizens of Yarmouth would be understanding of what we've done and the steps that we have made. We're certainly prepared to do that again. We can host a meeting here with our environmental representatives just to give yet another overview of where we are and what our next steps are. I have no problem doing that.
Yeah, this is not from citizens. This was actually from administration. So
From the administration.
administration.
Okay.
So that
All
would be the important piece of doing that.
Okay, thank
And
you.
I did notice there was no noise report. I'm sorry, because that was before me.
The noise report is July, October, January, and April,
Yeah. So is there one?
not in June.
Not in June.
Oh, okay. Because I thought
Why is
last
it on the
meeting,
agenda?
I thought last meeting there wasn't one. She wasn't present or didn't have it.
No, she did it in April, and then we skip a couple of months, and then the next
Okay.
one will be July, so that quarterly
Okay.
report.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I wasn't sure with that listing if that was the dates of reporting or if it was the months that were getting reported. Thank you, sorry.
Okay, looks like it's time for updates.
Sure. Just wanted to go over some updates with our seasonal staff. You may or may not be seeing some of our seasonal staff members as you come in and out of the airport. If you're flying out of the facility, you may see them as well. So we do have 4 that are dedicated to airport operations. And the reason why I'm going over this is because these kids, some of them are returned, I say kids, young adults. Some of these young adults are returning to us from working last season or the season prior. But we have John, who is from Pennsylvania State University. He's studying or getting a Bachelor of Science in Security Risk Analysis. We tease him, he's probably gonna be working at some point in time for the FBI, CIA, or being the lead for TSA at some point in time. But he's great to have on board. We have Joey, who's here. He's a Barnstable High School student. He's a former Barnstable High School student. We have Sean, who is here from Bridgewater State University. He's enrolled in the Bridgewater Aviation Science program, and he is was in flight training, and he's a graduate, I believe, right, Matt?
Yes.
He's a graduate of Bridgewater. And then we have Michael, who's also from Bridgewater State University. It's his first year, and he's also in aviation science. So I bring this to your attention to say that, you know, this is, even though we call it the summer program or the seasonal program, it's really giving some of these students that are involved in aviation part of an internship so that they can add it to their resume that they worked at the airport, and it's helping us out as well during the busy summer season. Do you want to add anything?
Just one kind of interesting note, Sean, who Katie mentioned, this is his 4th summer with us, so he's continued to come back. John and Joey, it's both their 2nd summer, and Michael, it's his first. And one of our recent operation hires, Dan Tourget, not the most recent, but the one prior to that, he had spent 7 summers as a seasonal before he was hired as a full-time operations staff member. So it's both an investment for future full-time operations staff and an opportunity for the students, and they seem to enjoy it because they've continued to come back. We've had a number that have gone on to careers that had been here for a number of summers as well. So I just thought that was an interesting piece to add.
No, it's a good point.
This may be tangentially appropriate, I was gonna comment at the end, but at the last Cape Area Pilots Association meeting was to hand out scholarships to young people who were involved in aviation as part of their education. And there were 4 scholarships, I believe they're $10,000 each. 2 of the 4 went to former interns at Cape Cod Gateway Airport. And I just wanted to make sure everybody understood the role that you and the rest of the team have been playing in developing career paths for these young people. You know, it's important to me that we find places for these people to get good employment and want to stay here and take care of us as we get older and all of that stuff. So it's very important to us.
Good point.
And the other part of it, 2 of the 4 scholarships were for women. And I know somebody who had participated in the career fair last year was concerned that there weren't enough women involved in going for 2 or 4 scholarships.
That's great. Thank you, Norm, for adding that. I appreciate it. We're happy to have them here for sure, and it's nice to see them. In fact, one of the students is actually actively taking flight lessons, and he didn't want to have to go all the way to Plymouth to take some of his flight lessons. So we hooked him up with Eric Drugi, also correctly. We hooked him up with Eric Drugi so he can take lessons here. So maybe he can fit it in when he's after work or whatnot. But he's already going to be in this location, so it makes sense. So those elements, a lot of those things are finally coming together, which we're happy to see. So thank you. We also have another assistant or summer seasonal that's here with us for this year. It's the first time that we're doing this. We have a lot of projects that are taking place on the airport. We have given Chris a long floor. So he has been extremely busy with runway 624 project, which you'll hear about in a moment, replacement of the EMAS project, the redevelopment and extension of Mary Dunn Way, and the airport operations and the new T hangar that's being constructed. Chris is managing a lot of that. Obviously, he pulls Matt and I in when he needs to. We have weekly meetings about the projects, but he just needed some help. So one of the summer one of the summer seasonals so happens to be the project manager assistant to assist Chris. Her name is Samantha Munar. Is that Munar? She's from Bates College, comes from Bates College in Lewiston, Maine. She is going after a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering and Physics, a double major. Chris, do you want to say anything about Samantha and her time? She's only been here for a week.
Just over a week, yeah. Thank you, Katie, and thank you to the commission for the support. Sam's been here a week and it feels like a month, so I really could use the support. She's hit the ground running, and she's really a force multiplier. So it allows me to be able to extract myself from some things and hopefully provide a better service to Matt and Katie, and ultimately you guys, to manage these projects. It's been a fun construction season so far. We're in full swing, but hopefully when I give the other updates, you'll see some of the benefits of having the support. So thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it. Okay. Moving on to monthly financial review. So for the monthly financial review, I provided a copy to all of you, either in the form of the finance subcommittee meeting or last week when I sent out the documentation for this meeting. We've updated the financial information that we're providing on a monthly basis based on comments that we received from the commission at our May commission meeting. So I'll start going through those. Yeah, it is delayed. Okay. So just looking at our revenues for the year, budget revenues, the columns that you see there is the budget for the entire year, that's what was approved by town council and by the commission. The actual is where we are as of the 24th of May, so it's timestamped on the 24th of May of what we have collected in revenues, and then I'll show you expenses in a few moments. The variance between the two, and then variance in percentage, again, so far for the fiscal year. So you can see where we are for jet fuel and rental car concessions, as well as land leases. Jet fuel, we have sold, not necessarily more jet fuel, it's just at a higher price, so our revenues are a little bit higher than what we anticipated for the fiscal year. We're doing quite well with our rental car concessions, and I have more detailed slides that will show you that in a few moments. Of course, we look at our land lease non-aviation parcels, such as HMI parking that I talked a little bit about today with the vehicle parking, as well as WS development and the landing at Hyannis. Those are examples of our non-aviation land leases. And of course, TSA and other grants that we've received. So our total revenue as of the 24th of May, without any type of CARES Act or other grants that we received, we had hoped for a 9.7 million budget. Actual year to date is just about 11.8 million. So where we are for the variance is just over 2 million. If we look at those same total revenues, but we incorporate the grants that we received, the actual is about 16 million, and that's because we're getting reimbursement requests that are being processed by the FAA for various grants. So that puts it at us at about 6.2 right now as of the 24th of May, million. Looking at our budget.
Katie, can you just go back for a second?
Yeah.
Please.
Oops. Do you want me to make that bigger, Mark?
Yeah, you can start the slideshow again.
Okay. One of the notes that we placed on the bottom is basically since we budget for the entire year, there are some items or lump sum items that don't necessarily get deposited into our accounts yet, so there's a little bit of a delay sometimes. So I just made that note when you start looking at kind of where we are so far in the fiscal year.
So I'm really impressed with the performance of our grant, 7,000% over our budget. Can you fill us in on that? What's happening with that?
So for the grants, we didn't have a dollar amount for the grants as to what we were anticipating asking for reimbursement. For those grants, we know that we have CURSA and CARES Act grants that are in place right now, but we haven't requested all of the reimbursement funds. We have about $8 million or so total that should be requested by the end of this fiscal year. Excuse me, by the end of this calendar year. So it's a little bit skewed because we didn't budget for those
Sure.
items. So that 7,000, that's skewed.
Okay, all right. And then on permits, we budgeted 3,000, we've got 6,725, which is a surplus, but it seems like we're showing a negative.
That should actually be a surplus. That's just a typo.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
You're welcome. So moving forward for the budget summary in regards to revenue producers. So this is typically what we've showed in the past on most of our monthly financial reporting, where we have typically seen that jet fuel is one of the highest revenue producers for the airport, followed by any grants right now that we'll receive. We know that will fluctuate once we've asked for all of our grant reimbursements. Land leases for non-aviation, renewable energy credits, car rental concessions, and land lease rentals. That's typically what we've seen for our top six. When we look at our summary for expenses, again, the columns identify the budget for the entire fiscal year, what was approved by Town Council and the Airport Commission, the actual of where we are in May of 2024, and then the variance of those. So personnel, salaries and wages, those are typically our highest expenses. Typically, we see those increase on a regular basis. Every year we'll see those increases based on our union negotiations and what we have in the union contracts. The vast majority of our folks that work at the airport are union members. Transfers to general fund is basically our indirect fees that we pay to the town of Barnstable for various items such as attorney fees and fees for human resources and for computer and IT services. Operating expenses, obviously jet fuel being one of our highest, and then we all know that property insurance and fire, that's all increasing. For this budget that's coming up, budget for 2024, we increased those line items by about 10% because they are increasing on a regular basis. This is the pie chart that we usually show you for expenses, again with fuel sales being the highest in our expenses, followed by our salaries and wages. Professional services, which are our on-call teams, such as the communications management team that we just approved of. So that's what falls into the category for our top 6. So just a summary, just for jet fuel. So jet fuel revenue, the fiscal year comparison, basically the revenue collected between fiscal year 2022 and fiscal year 2023. That's what we're reviewing here. So it's increased by about 20%, for that's again revenue collected in fiscal year 2022 versus fiscal year 2023. I put a notation on this slide so that you can see that even though jet fuel sales by gallons sold has decreased for this month, when we look at the month of May, and overall for the fiscal year, the revenue collected reflects the difference in the price of fuel from one fiscal year to the next. So I think this was something that we just had to clarify on this slide when we gave this last May. So in 2022, the average price for a gallon of jet fuel was $4.37, and moving forward into this fiscal year is $5.45 per gallon. So that's the change. So that's why you see that. Going to the next bullet, the jet fuel sales monthly comparison. It's the gallons sold in May 2022 versus May of 2023. So we showed a decline at about 48%. When you looked at both months for 2022 and 2023, this was reported as of the 24th of May. That number has changed a little bit, so when we show you the June numbers, you'll see a difference in those numbers from there. For jet fuel sales, when we compare gallons sold fiscal year to fiscal year, so from fiscal year 2022 to fiscal year 2023, overall we're down by about 4%, and that is again as of May 24th. 1.278 gallons were sold in 2022 versus 1.228 gallons sold in 2023. Any questions or comments on that before I move on? This is a summary of jet fuel gallons sold by fiscal year. So I put a notation on there that identifies that obviously fiscal year 2023 is going to be partial. Once we actually close our books, you'll have an end number of what we did for jet fuel sales. But you can see in 2022, that was a real peak for us. We're starting to see industry-wide that that's changing, and I have a slide that shows you that in a few moments. But we're seeing a shift in corporate activity, which is also shifting our jet fuel sales. This is a summary of jet fuel gallons sold by fiscal year by month. So obviously, this sector here is our highest month of sales. You can see that the orange is fiscal year 2023, and the blue is the previous year, fiscal year 2022. So we're tracking just a little bit below that. This is where we are today, basically in May. So you can see that for fiscal year 2023, it was a lot lower than fiscal year 2022, which is this blue up here, and 21. We saw the peak in 2021 just after COVID. So we've seen a lot of changes in corporate jet operational activity. You're seeing declines that are being reported nationwide. I threw this up there just you could see some reports that came out in March by Flying Magazine and Business Aviation. In a nutshell, I think that corporate aviation is not seeing the increases that they thought they would. Post-COVID, some of the folks that decided to fly corporate aircraft are transitioning now back to commercial aircraft. So they're seeing that fluctuation. I just don't think the corporate market thought they would see it so big, so quickly in January, February, and March of this year. So that's what we're seeing. We just had a meeting with Atlantic Aviation. Across the board, they're seeing that at all their stations, so it's not just high minutes, it's happening across the board. Do you have anything to add to that, Matt? So then, this is a slide that's new. We started to look at what are truly our top 6 revenue producers. What are we doing in terms of our revenue generation? Do we need to look at more diversification of our revenue? If we were to basically identify some of our revenues, such as jet fuel, a little bit differently in our reporting. The Finance Subcommittee asked us to report on this on a quarterly basis. So what I have on the screen is our top 6 that are typical for 2022 and where we are for our top 6 for 2023. You can see they're relatively the same. Renewable energy wasn't one of our top 6 in 2022, but obviously made it to 2023. Rental car concessions, they've modulated where they are in the lineup for the top 6 revenue producers. So in looking at fiscal year 2022 revenues, 17.6 million is, a lot of that does include the federal grants are included in that total. If we look at our aviation-related revenue, so that's the table on the right-hand side, anything is green text is aviation-related revenue. That accounts for, just looking at fiscal year 2022, and I use 2022 only because it's a completed year. We've closed those books, we know what we've made on all of those revenue producers. So that's why I use 2022 to give you a better picture of where we are at. Aviation is green text, about 14.7 million is generated for revenue with aviation-related revenues, so that's about 84% of that 17 million. Non-aviation revenue is the black text to the right, that's about 2.8 million. So if we are to use what we made in fiscal year 2022 for revenue, of that 17.6 million, 84% is related to aviation, 16% is related to non-aviation. If we take it a bit further, did that just move on me?
Yeah. There you go.
Alright, so diversification of revenue.
I'm sorry, Katie, can you go back to the previous slide?
Sure.
So, last year landing fees were in our top 6, this year they're not at all.
Correct, but that is probably because those line items, or those top 6 fluctuate. So they're actually number 7.
Okay,
So they're still up at the top, we're just reporting on the top
got it,
6.
okay, thank you.
So when we started to look at whether or not we need to diversify more of our revenue streams, one of the things that the Finance Subcommittee asked is there a way that you can look at the jet fuel cost center and really identify what is our true dollar amount that we're making, what is our true revenue with jet fuel. So we took, again, 2022 revenues, that 17.6 million. We identified our aviation and non-aviation revenue producers, like I just mentioned in the slide previously. And then we said, let's consider our jet fuel cost of goods sold, okay? So the cost of goods sold, the box that you see down here on the left-hand side, this was created by our on-call engineers and planners from McFarland Johnson in helping us identify our revenue streams and our airport's rates and charges. So they split our cost of goods sold for jet fuel. They took, I think, 6 cost centers for the airport and identified those typical revenue generators. For the jet fuel piece, we said we really need to understand what it is that we're putting out there to run this business. What does it cost for our staff salaries and wages? What is our expense to have those staff members here? What is the percentage that they are working on jet fuel versus something else on the airfield? And we've identified that. Staff benefits and expenses, jet fuel purchases for resale, lease payments for our trucks needs to be incorporated, plus our insurance as well. Any credit card fees for selling the jet fuel, all of these items go into the cost of goods sold for the jet fuel cost center. So if we were to take that total jet fuel cost center, 5.9 million, and we say, let's take a look at that without the resale purchase of jet fuel. So take that out of the mix. The jet fuel revenue, the net revenue, after we take into all of those components for jet fuel expense, is about 1.4 million. So again, it fluctuates annually because of various components. So as you can imagine, when we increase our salaries, we see an increase in the cost of goods for the jet fuel line item. When we increase our insurance, like I said, 2024, I'm increasing it by about 10%. That gets into the cost of goods sold. So we have to take that into account. So whenever we fluctuate our jet fuel prices, we have to take into account these typical increases that are coming across the board. So the components, like I said, are given a percentage based on use and determined during the rates and charges study. So when we looked at our staffing for airport operations, for instance, we identified that they have a high percentage that they're working on jet fuel versus some other component or task within their duties, which is, airfield inspections, just to give you an example. So they all get a weighted percentage for those components and who is working on that particular line item or that particular cost expense. The average net, if we look back in previous years, 2020, 2019, anywhere between 1 and 1.5 million is the net that we're making. And then fiscal year net, obviously for 2022 was 1.4. So if we take that into account, if we consider the jet fuel differently in our cost, in our revenue stream, and we use those 2022 numbers as our case study, because this is the only complete year that we have of it, the most recent complete year before this year closes. If we remove the grants, and if we reduce our jet fuel to net only, our top 6 revenue producers really fluctuate and change. So you can see there that our top 6, as of this point, using 2022 data, is land leases for non-aviation. We've always strived to make sure that we are diversifying our revenue stream. I still think that we need to strike a balance between the different types of revenue sources, but this is pretty telling of where we sit from a diversification standpoint. Up next is jet fuel, so that's number 2, followed by car rental concessions, land leases for aviation, landing fees, and renewable energy revenue. And that was all based on 2022 dollars. Any questions or comments before I go through this focus for the upcoming revenue?
First of all, that last slide shows the numbers the way I believe we should be looking at them as a general statement, that they start to put into perspective the operations of this organization. Jet fuel has looked at it separately, just as a separate revenue item and a separate expense item, distorts all the other activity. So as you know from the finance subcommittee, when you presented this, I was thrilled to see all of this, because it helps give everybody a better perspective on things. I periodically make the other comment about diversification of revenue. I agree with that in concept, but in the banking industry, where I spent a great deal of my career, it was also disastrous. As we look at diversification of revenue, we have to be very, very sensitive to what diversified revenue we actually want to focus on. As commissioners, we all need to be paying attention to that. One example in the banking industry is that all of the community banks rushed to buy insurance agencies so that they could be in the insurance business. And what they quickly found out is they had no idea how to run an insurance agency. So even though all of their customers that were insurance agents were millionaires, they couldn't translate that into their own running of a business themselves. So we have to be very careful of that as we diversify.
On the previous slide, Katie, in that green box at the bottom, I see the relationship between, the cost of goods sold, the 5.9 million, and the jet fuel revenue. I don't understand how the resale purchase factors into those numbers.
So if we wanted to, so that, let me just go back a couple of slides here. So in talking to the finance subcommittee, we always felt that purchases for resale really skewed, even though we know it's part of the overall cost center for jet fuel sales.
Yeah.
It skewed a little bit, it skewed where we were for our top 6. Because we know that we're gonna buy fuel, we're going to get paid back for that purchase of fuel, then some, plus the net revenue. So we wanted to show, in this slide, let me just go back to this slide. We wanted to show that of the various components, if we just take that jet fuel purchase for resale, if we just take that out of the mix, and we just kind of treat it as a separate line item, we're trying to get after, what is our net revenue? So what is our revenue after we've paid for all of these items to operate the business? What is our true net revenue after, we know we're gonna buy fuel, we're gonna sell fuel. So what are we truly making off that? We were trying to make the correlation as to, do we need to increase our jet fuel sales?
Okay, so up above, the jet fuel purchase for resale, the 4.9 million. Essentially, what we're saying is take that out of the mix, and the real cost of goods sold is the 991,000.
That's correct.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah.
Also, on a previous slide, you indicated that overtime was 32% over budget, and I was just wondering if it was an event that happened that caused us to spike, or staffing, or.
There's a couple of reasons for the overtime increase. One, we've had a very difficult time hiring custodians.
Okay.
We have had a position that was out for some time without lots of effort on Matt's part, lots of interviews that
Right.
occurred, and then once we finally got to the ID processing, there was something that showed up
Sure.
that we couldn't provide that person with the position. So we've gone through it several times. I think we have a new custodian that is starting.
Hopefully soon.
So we had a lot of overtime that was to cover that. Secondarily, we have a lot of overtime that's associated with our projects. Now, this is abnormal for us to have this many projects at this point in time. I cannot wait until September or October comes because it's been a lot of work. I mean, we have grants that we were offered. So a lot of the overtime is associated with just covering for escorting needs. We were lucky enough to be able to get reimbursed through the FAA for 2 of those projects, which is Runway 624 project and the EMAS project, so that's embedded in the project, but the other projects were not. So, there's sometimes the contractor is asking to go beyond 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock is the normal time that our folks are starting to go home. So they're working until 5 o'clock based on their bid specifications. So we always have to put somebody on overtime for a couple of hours. But that compounded with not having custodians, we've been covering a lot of custodian shifts.
All right, thank you.
Yes. Any more to add to that now? Okay. So in looking at our focus for our revenue, so obviously increase non-aviation revenue goals, that's something that we've said over and over again. I think we should still seek doing that. There is still some land lease properties that are out there, this cafe being one of them. We have a vacant 1.4 acre lot that's located on Airport Road, right across the street from the Fleet Building that Cape Air leases from us. So we have opportunity to still look at more aviation, non-aviation land lease rentals. Vehicle parking, RFP should be going out for the Steamship Authority. Their lease expires for 11 acres in December of 2024. We should be putting an RFP out for that. That will include John Flores, a mention of possibly minimum annual guarantees that we should be incorporating in those types of leases. That would be in some type of RFP for Reef Parking. Reef Parking operates the main terminal parking lot for us. Their lease expires in 2027. HMI Parking, theirs expires in 2025, so we'll be looking at how those are structured. Vehicle rentals, their lease for 4 rental companies expires in June of 2024. We will be going back out to bid for that as well. Developing more robust airport advertisement, we have the ability to do that here in the terminal and elsewhere. And then we have been very fortunate with the construction of Mary Dunn Way that we have an interest in aviation hangar development. Obviously, Eric Drugi was here today. He's obviously very interested in developing over on that side of the airfield. I am meeting with a couple next week that wants to develop on the airport. And then we have another gentleman that has asked for a draft lease that was provided to him most recently. So we have the potential of 2 to 3 additional hangar development occurring within the next couple of years if those leases go through and everybody wants to stay on that path. So we're continuing down that path.
Is that last bullet, does that refer to, in parentheses, it says, even though aviation sector does not fluctuate as much as corporate and commercial, is that general aviation sector?
General aviation, yeah. So when we started looking at, hangar development, that's still an aviation component, but you're signing a 20-year lease with somebody that has a structure that can be utilized by the general aviation market.
Thank you.
Yeah. Going back to rental car concessions, so if you look at this fiscal year, obviously it's a partial year, 477,000, just over that for this fiscal year so far. As you can see, looking at from 2014 all the way to today, your average is anywhere between 320 to 380. That's more of the average. When I did the budget for fiscal year 2024 that's coming up, I used averages, not the inflated numbers that we're seeing in the past 3 years. But they've been doing quite well, even with reduced passenger loads. Hertz is still the highest revenue producer year over year. Avis is the blue, Budget is the red line, Hertz is the green, and Enterprise is the purple. I'm showing from 2014 to present day of their revenue production at the airport. In terms of airport operations and passenger activity, enplaned passengers and replaned passengers, we're hopeful for this fiscal year that we would see about 40,000, or about half that. Obviously, JetBlue is helping us. Cape Air has brought back some of their flights that they canceled last year, and I'll show you that in the next slide. And then, of course, airport operations, our hope was to be about 60,000, we're about 44,000. Going towards the end of the fiscal year. Obviously, this accounts for numbers through April. It doesn't account for numbers through May. So you'll see some changes as we close out the year. We typically don't get our numbers from air traffic control tower. They're usually delayed by about a month or two. So that's why you see a delay.
Okay, have you adjusted accordingly in the FY24 budget?
Yes.
To reflect the real numbers?
Yes.
So we're not fit, so we don't appear to be 50% below where we were?
Yeah, we showed them slightly lower than that. I'm hopeful that with JetBlue that will help us, but I think we have a long road to go before we creep those numbers back up to what they used to be back in 2000.
That's never gonna happen.
And Katie, is there any reason why those numbers are delayed by so much?
They typically don't provide us, they finish the full month and then they'll forward their reporting onto us. So by the time we actually report to the commission, we don't have a full month yet for the month of May. All we have is the April was the last previous report. So they don't give us partial days, they don't give us a daily count. So we don't have the official report from them yet until a month later.
What about May?
We don't have all of May yet. We had all of April, they haven't provided us with May yet. So as of this report for May 24th is when I reported on this, we didn't have any May numbers from them yet.
Okay. You may want to mention that to the new manager because they should be able to give it to you in the first week of the month.
Okay, I can ask them.
They're typically done within a day or two of the last day of the month.
Okay, I'll reach out to them.
Thank you.
Thanks. This is just a year over year of passenger activity since fiscal year 2025. Obviously, we've seen significant declines. We know that we're working towards improving that with having hopefully soon, at some point in time, at the end of at the end of this fall, hopefully a consultant that will be working with us for air carrier activity. But those are the numbers. We really started seeing declines in 2007 and 2008. A lot of the impact has to do with traffic for high-speed ferries, more opportunity taking a high-speed ferry over to the islands, as well as the loss of a lot of the airlines that we used to have here. This is another indication of the operations and passengers activity on a monthly view. Airline summer schedule, we are seeing, the good thing is we are seeing increasing air carrier operations for summer of 2023. It will help us with our passenger numbers. It will not help us with our meetings in the airport terminal, but it will help us with our numbers. So JetBlue for May through July, they provided us their schedule. We do not have August and September or October from them yet, but as you can see, we have the 2 flights that are JFK and LaGuardia, to and from Hyannis. They do change, they just changed June 15th. So we have the LaGuardia flight is coming in a little bit earlier than it was in May, June. And same thing with JFK flight, they've modified their time, so it's coming in a little bit later. And looking at our summer schedule with Cape Air, last year they pulled back significantly so because of their pilot shortage. We're seeing on average between 2 to 5 flights a day now for this fiscal year. They gave us the summer schedule through October. So we're seeing more Hyannis to Nantucket flights than we saw last year. Hyannis to the Vineyard, that was completely pulled back last year. So we at least have at least 1 flight almost daily, not every day, Monday and Saturday, they don't have any flights. And then their successful flights have been their flights to Boston. So I really hope that we see more flights to Boston. They have interline connection with JetBlue, with other airline, United, Delta. So there's opportunity there for somebody to take a flight right here from Hyannis and get to their final destination, which could be California or Florida. Grant updates. So I'm going to have Chris go over the projects in a couple of minutes, but our CARES Act grant, just a note that we are utilizing this grant for our operating budget use that has already been approved by the commission. Project use is for Mary Dunn Way and the airport operations and hangar facility. Note that a local share for the hangar and airport operations was just over $2.1 million. That was approved by the commission last year. We've exhausted our funds for the CURSA grant. We've exhausted our funds for the ARPA grant. And we are using our bill grant fund, the first one, for our environmental assessment, for funding of that. In years 2 and 3 of the bill grant, we've already spoken to FAA. We'll be using those grant funds for HVAC upgrades in the tower.
So the bill grants, we've submitted for year 1, and we're in the process of submitting for years 2 and 3.
Correct. So we reached out to the FAA to see if we can combine 2 years like that in a row, and they said yes, we could. We're getting some preliminary estimates on the HVAC upgrade that's needed in the tower, and it is over $1 million. So we will need to combine those 2 as well.
But are we confident that we're going to get these grants?
Yes. The bill grants that they basically identified that they've been awarded to various, they haven't been awarded to us yet, but they've been identified that we should be getting bill grants for the next 5 years. It's a 5-year program. Each year they change the dollar amount, so you can see on the screen how we had the 1.05 for the first year, and it's a little bit lower for the second year, 1.05674. So we don't know what the 2024 bill grant will be. We're waiting to hear from FAA on that one, so we don't have that dollar amount yet. We're anticipating that it's going to be somewhere close to what was afforded in the first 2 years, but we can't guarantee that.
Okay.
For current, we have, this is a combination statement and question, but everything that was out there that's been committed, expended, or in some way prior to the drop dead dates or deadlines.
Yes, so that was one of our main focuses, and probably why Chris is pulling his hair out right now. We wanted to make sure that this period of performance was being met by all of our grants. And so you can see the next period of performance is June 2024. We will have all of our reimbursements for those projects by the end of this year. So we will meet that period of performance. For the ARPA and for the CURSA grants, these two grants, this one has been closed out, so obviously we met that period of performance. This ARPA grant is December of 2025, but we're going to be well in advance of closing that one out. And then we have our bill grants that we'll be working towards.
So reimbursements based on federal fiscal year versus the state versus the
Correct.
county.
Well, right, so
So
for
September
the,
one's right there.
exactly, for the bill grants, yeah,
So the first bill grant there is year one,
correct.
and we have an acceptance date of March 31st, so we know we're getting that money.
We have that money already, the
We
grant.
do, okay.
Yes, we do have that grant. We do not have grants for these two bills. We have the dollar amount of what the award would be, but we don't physically have the grant yet because we have to apply for it with the project that's appropriate.
Okay, because the previous slide said you were awaiting the grant for year one, but this indicates you got it.
Yes, we have it, sorry.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any questions or comments? I just have a few more updates. Do you want me to go through the business plan update, or do you want to read that? I did send it to all of you, it's up to you. I know it's 5:25, so just let me know.
We can read it.
Okay. Just real quick, I'm gonna jump down here. Could you, Chris, give an update on the projects for me?
So we'll pull up some pictures real quick. It's just on the thumb drive, Katie. Thank you.
Can you see it?
Yeah, I can see it now. While I'm queuing this up, I was just thinking, reflecting on Katie's comments, I think this is year 19 or year 20 in aviation for me. And this has been a busy construction season, I'll tell you that. As some of you may not be coming from Southern Arizona, Tucson Airport Authority. Tucson's roughly the size of TF Green for scale. You know, it's also a GA airport at Tucson, Ryan Field. Anyways, that authority is 250 people, opposed to 25 people here, and we're doing more projects this construction season than they ever attempted in Tucson, so for some perspective there. Slideshow. All right, so we're just gonna jump into the RFOPS remodel project. You can see these two pictures here. It looks like there's a lot going on in there. It's kind of like a skeleton because it is. So we've got all the interior walls are laid out, all the rough plumbing and electrical are done. We started to put drywall in and sealant. This is a window opening or window frame. So it's come a long way. We're very close to hanging interior drywall, and then it's gonna start looking like a building inside there. So very exciting to see that come together. This project has slid a little bit in schedule. We're looking at about the end of August now is where that's standing. It's been a bit of a challenge, but we're getting days back. Its schedule is trending in the right direction, so we're doing well there. It is tough. It's only 1,700 square feet, so it's a little tough at times to get subs in here, but we're battling with our contractors and getting things done. So this project is progressing. T-Hanger project. We've got steel in the air. And I took a picture of both sides. The other side of the T-hanger is fully encased in steel, right? So this side just shows the lower half of the doors aren't there. On the other side, it's done. So this is well on its way to being completed. The date on this is holding for the middle of July. So very excited to get this project done. It was a long time coming, doing the foundation, all the prep work, and then when we started putting this in the air, it was like an erector set for adults. It went up really quick. So very excited to see this project develop. If you've driven down Mary Dunn, just look over to your left and you'll see it up there in the air. So very exciting. The runway project. This is a really cool picture. This may be me standing in the back of a truck, so don't tell Matt. If you look over here, this is the end of the runway, and this is the base course. There is only 50 feet left on the base course. That's how much asphalt we put down. So very impressive. Lawrence Lynch has done a very good job putting that down. So we'll get the base course done here for the main runway probably by tomorrow. Then we'll start doing the taxiways. We'll do that for a few more days, and then we'll be complete with our base course. Very exciting. Then we'll do 2 more lifts, about 2.5 inches apiece, and the runway will be paved. So still have work to do on the RSAs and the infields to get that stuff where it needs to be. Still have some electrical work to do, but it definitely looks like a runway. So very exciting there on the runway project.
On schedule?
Yes, sir. We are tracking just a little ahead of schedule on this. But any paving operations are very dynamic. To Katie's point, trying to get everything done in a compressed time frame has what's led to some of those overtime overages, because you're dealing with a lot of different variables when you're talking about putting asphalt in the ground.
What is the schedule, you think, now? So you said it was on schedule, but what's the
So
date?
I think we were telling most of our community that it would be October timeframe for final punch list items. We're still looking at that as a possibility. I hope it's September, but we're still keeping our October timeframe as we committed to the community.
Thank you.
Once we have all the asphalt done, it needs to do this thing secure, we'll come back, we'll groove the runway. We also have to put new markings down in phases as well. And so there's some time lag in between there when you do those phases, but we're progressing very well for this. In the EMAS project, what I have depicted here is just an access road that was put in for this project. It's a little hard to tell, but there are the EMAS blocks there. But this construction site, if you're on Route 28, you look to your left, you'll see it looks like a construction site. We've got a construction trailer in place, laydown yards in place, access road in place. We're getting ready to remove blocks. That's the first step. Remove the blocks, clean everything out, and then bring the new blocks in. So we're progressing roughly about a 90-day project here. So in and out before the runway is done. So looking forward to getting this thing moving, but it looks like a construction site. CSPP is good to go. We've approved that, and the contractor's ready to get started on that.
And the CSPP is Construction Safety and Phasing Plan. And it basically outlines how the contract crew is going to get to their site, their construction site, without going onto an active airport, runway, taxiway, you name it. It keeps them hemmed in. We use snow fencing that's approved by the FAA. The FAA reviews our construction safety and phasing plan. We include the air traffic control tower and comments from them, as well as the construction crew and our engineers to develop this plan, and we stay to this plan. Because the last thing that you want is a construction truck to go outside of this location and be on an active runway. So we're sticklers for the construction safety and phasing plan. This road that Chris is showing you is a way for them to get from their laydown area to the construction site without even going on any active runway, taxiway, or road.
The last thing I'll say, I don't have it depicted, but the Mary Dunn project is in final punch list. I know I've been saying that for months, but it really is. We did get a generator installed, so hopefully the next time we come around, we'll have some updated pictures just saying that project is completed. And I will just say overall, in my opinion, I would say at least 2/3 of the field right now is under construction. To have a runway project, remodel project, a T-hangar going in the air, and an EMAS, one that's a lot, and the team's performed very well. It's been a busy season, but we're halfway home, I think.
And we've had no construction-related incursions, runway incursions.
No, sir. This time we have had zero construction-related runway incursions.
Hats off to you.
Yeah.
Really,
To
that's-
Katie's point,
that's incredible.
we're currently in construction on both sides of an active runway and taxiway. So it's been a lot, but we're working through it.
And I have to say, and not to embarrass you, Chris, but Chris has been a godsend for Matt and I. We would not be able to run the projects the way that Chris has been running them, and he has a lot that's being thrown at him. So the fact that we were able to get him a summer seasonal definitely helps, but he's busy. He's very busy, and the busiest project I would have to say is probably the airport operations facility and the T-hangar. That has so many moving parts because it's a structural building. There's all, changes being made, different material that they want to use instead of the material that was in the bid specifications. And it takes time, and Chris has been on it day in and day out. So we have a good project manager here. Thanks, Chris.
Nice job.
Okay.
Good job.
Thank you very much, Chris. I've identified the upcoming finance items and infrastructure items. It looks like infrastructure might want to cancel for the month of July, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. I believe we still need to move forward with finance because we will have leases that will need to be approved for the finance subcommittee.
Have we settled a date on that?
We haven't yet. I think I proposed the 11th. Just need to let Sue know which date is going to work. In regards to procurement, just real quick, obviously, communications managers complete 110 Mary Dunn Way. We know our course of action right now. Airline consultant, spring, summer of 2023 is when it will be put out to bid, but we probably won't get somebody on board until the fall, as I mentioned previously. Cafe and commercial kitchen, we've talked to a couple of potential folks that want to use it, not necessarily in the season because it doesn't get as much traffic, obviously we're using it for a meeting, but how they could use it for some type of catering business that they have where they're just physically using our kitchen for that purpose, so we're talking with a couple of folks there. The airport signs and the tower sign, we have one change that really needs to be made in the bid specifications for those signs. So I have our team, I haven't yet, I will have our team make those changes and then we'll put that out to bid. For upcoming environmental assessment meeting, just a FYI, we had our workshop with the commission on the 12th of June. That was completed, and then our public meetings that are coming up are tomorrow on the 21st. We have a virtual meeting that is from 2 to 4. And if you go to our website, we have the link there on our website. We provided the link in press releases, and we just sent out a second notice to our stakeholders about that meeting.
Regarding tomorrow's meetings, as you know, there's a Zoom and then an in-person. I will be participating in the Zoom at 2 o'clock, and I believe Vice Chairman Flores will be in person in his own favorite haunt, the Crocker Hearing Room. I would appreciate as many commissioners as possible being at one or the other so that you can hear what our neighbors and our public has to say and their input.
Yeah. Thank you, I appreciate that. The 6 o'clock meeting, as Griff mentioned, is at Town Hall. It's a better venue for us to be able to have a public meeting. There's larger screens there for us to have a presentation. There's just better opportunity to get public comment and input there. So please join us for those meetings. We are responding in those meetings to the ENF, which is the Environmental Notification Form, the certificate that we received from the Massachusetts Environmental Policy Act identified additional analyses that were required based on public comments that we received. We received probably about 12 public comments. Some were in favor of proceeding forward with various projects. Others had concerns about how we are going to analyze different elements of the project, and we're responding to that at these meetings.
One more comment just with regard to, this was, as we all know, in the Sunday's Cape Cod Times, and that and various radio and news outlets, this has been getting very, very good pre-event coverage. So, it'd be hard to say, gee, I didn't know.
Yeah, no, thank you for saying that. We've been trying to make sure that we get the word out and provide ample opportunity, which is why we're doing both a virtual meeting and an in-person meeting. We sent press releases out last Monday. We're sending another press release. We have, this past Monday, we sent a press release out. We sent personal letters to our stakeholders who have been members that have been present at our previous 2 meetings. So this is the third public meeting, and I think the fact that we're providing such opportunity to get public comment, I'm hoping that we have ample comments and questions that we'll need tomorrow. Upcoming events and past events, our festivities on the flight line. We had a great event, we had good weather, we had great venue. I'm sorry that not everyone could attend, but we did sell 35 tickets and we had some walk-ins. Everybody was very pleased. The music was excellent. Thank you, Sue, for getting Mark Beal to join us. It was
They were outstanding.
They were outstanding. It was a great event. I hope that next year's event will be even better and bigger. So we're starting to plan for our September events. As you remember, the Massachusetts Air and Space Museum wanted to move our July event to October. So with all of our construction that we're doing, we said, yes, please, thank you. We'll do that in October. And then September, we have our Aviation Career Fair and the Great Day for the Gateway, and both of those are really coming together. That's all I have for updates. Any questions, comments, other items?
We're busy.
Yeah.
We're busy.
Any last item on the agenda, announcements, commissioners' comments. Anybody wish to throw something in before? I've got a couple of things, but go ahead.
One thing I'd like to say, because I said it at the finance subcommittee meeting, but I just want to acknowledge the work that Katie and the team has done over the years to respond to input from the Finance Subcommittee on the presentation of financial information. And what has happened in the last year in particular has been outstanding, and I want to recognize that. The fuel analysis is the latest example of moving forward, so I appreciate it. I know that the subcommittee appreciates it, and it's better for all of us involved to have that.
Thank you.
I agree.
I agree.
Second that.
Second that among.
Okay, as we wrap up our fiscal year, look forward to the next, I guess, just real quickly. I think we've got a really good team here in our commission. We've got a lot of skills, you know, scattered around amongst us in the commission. We've all got our little areas of expertise that combine nicely. Good management team and serving a good community. I thank you all for everything this past year. Looking just a couple of, one thing that didn't get mentioned, but I would mention it. Along 28, the so-called Mildred's parking lot.
Yes.
Even with this traffic, you get a chance to look at it.
Yes, you do.
But it's a huge improvement with Suffolk in there, using it as a staging area. One of the things that we demanded is that they make it look a little better, and I think they've done a pretty good job. This, just real quick, no bloviating, I know we're all getting late, but this was in Sunday's Times on the 11th, and it was talking, and this goes with whether we're looking for a custodian or anything, but replenishing an aging workforce, and they focused on aviation maintenance technicians. Now that's kind of near and dear to my heart, because in 1932, my father founded East Coast Airways, which evolved into East Coast Aerotechnical School, which was one of the premier training facilities for this sort of stuff. The school that they focused on in this article was Pittsburgh Institute of Aeronautics, and I, from personal knowledge, know that is a first-class, really good organization. And there's a handful of these schools that predate Lindbergh's, or just there's a couple that predate Lindbergh's flight, and a few of them that predate, you know, well before World War II. But the idea, you know, my whole life I've tried to convince people, this is one great profession. You learn you get your federal A&P certificate, airframe and power plant. It is a multiple skilled license. You gotta know how to do all sorts of great stuff. If you get that license, you know what to do. You can fix doggone near anything. And you don't have to just stay in aviation, you can go about anywhere. So, but to the world out there, out in our community, young people, you scholarship people, we just apply for the scholarships. The Aero Club of New England just gave out, I forget a total number of scholarships, but it was tens of thousands of dollars, 3 of which went to AMT, Aviation Maintenance Technology students. Take advantage of it, all you young people, your high school people, your community college, even people out there, adults that, you know, I need retraining, I need to get a good job. This is fantastic, and they are desperate. The industry is desperate for these people.
I'd just like to piggyback that. Most recently at the Cape Cod Community College, up at Plymouth Airport, we had the Commission on Higher Education Committee to commend the community college, which I'm on the board of trustees, in terms of what it's been doing relative to maintenance related programs.
Yes, 4Cs.
And all of the students who are enrolled in that 4Cs program have jobs waiting for them as soon as they graduate. I mean, they have a choice of different airlines to come. So I would concur with what Griff is saying, that it's an outstanding opportunity, both for Cape Cod Community College as well as other institutions, to give young men and women really great career opportunities that will go long into the future.
I agree. Yep. Now's the time. I wish it was happening when I was in school. I didn't have that many opportunities.
Again, any other comments from anybody? If not, I thank you all. Look forward to another stunning fiscal year ahead of us, and enjoy the summer. What the heck will be here? And I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? I doubt it. All in favor, signify aye, please.
Aye.
Opposed? No, that is 1741.
Thank you.